Morning, Maria. Oh, Carol's watching. Okay, they've muted themselves. Maria, so far, it looks like we have 3 members of the public.
Okay, thank you.
Trying to keep track of them. I should start writing them down. Oh, Brad's on again. Brad Burge.
Good morning again, all.
Morning, Brad. How you doing?
Good. How's everybody else?
Good. How are you doing there, Brad?
Good. Nice to see you, Maria.
Good to see you again, too.
You didn't get enough yesterday, Brad.
Michael, I never get enough of you.
Yeah, right. CDTC and planning. You're just a planner forever and ever.
Greg is still in his tiki hut. That's very nice.
I might be in Hawaii. Actually, it's just my backyard, but I did think of, I did try to look if there are cheap rentals on the coast in case I could get away for a few weeks of this and just work on the coast. But rentals didn't come down in price. They just apparently aren't rented.
Yeah, you know, the real estate market is interesting. You know, it's either, we're getting such mixed signals. It's either going to go soft or the rentals are going to go really high because everybody's trying to get out of the metro New York area. They're renting 3 bedrooms in town now for a month for about $13,000. And prices and the housing is, everybody's got their house on the market and the real estate agents are just really busy. So it's an odd thing of, I'm not sure exactly where the market is moving.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Maria, whenever you want to get started, I guess. It's 10. I have 10:01, and there are some members of the public, probably 4 or 5 members of the public, maybe 5 now. What do you think? Do you want to get started, Maria?
Sure. Yeah, let's get started. All right. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the the stakeholder and public involvement meeting for the certification review for CDTC. Just to kind of give everyone just some background on certification reviews. Let me just introduce myself. My name is Maria Chow. I'm the Senior Community Planner at Federal Highway Administration, New York Division Office. And I'm actually here with my, counterpart at FTA, Federal Transit Administration, Michelle Gosman, who's my co-lead for the certification review. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of a background, certification reviews is a federal requirement for all metropolitan regions that are over 200,000 persons that has an MPO, and CDTC is one of them. So this happens every 4 years, and we certify the transportation planning process. When we look at the transportation planning process, we're not necessarily looking at what CDTC staff is doing. What we are looking at though is how all the interaction is taking place, to work through the transportation planning process, how the involvement of the public is, how the involvement of the policy board and the planning committee is, and all other entities that are involved with making decisions for transportation in the region using federal funding. So with that, I'm just going to pass this on to Michelle to see if she has anything she wants to add to what was just said.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Again, I'm Michelle Gossman. I'm a community planner with the Federal Transit Administration and co-lead. I've really enjoyed working and spending time with CDTC over the last few weeks, and I look forward to whatever you all have to share. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks once again. I mean, these are extraordinary times that we are living right now, and I can imagine that there's a lot on everyone's mind. So we really appreciate you joining us for this for this meeting. We really are interested in hearing what you have to say about the transportation planning process in your region. So with that, I'm just going to,
Yes, my name is Ivan Vamos, V-A-M-O-S.
So with that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the process of what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you.
It would be good for everyone to just introduce themselves first,
I just want
and
to know when
tell me your name and also where your, just where your, what your affiliation is.
there was a
And then, after that, we're going to go through a series of questions. And if you can, feel free to just respond to, respond to those questions as you wish. I think you just unmute yourself, and and then when you speak, you might see my head down because I'll be writing, but we want to include these things, these thoughts that you guys have on the transportation planning process in consideration for the certification review. So with that, we'll just go around real quickly, and please, give us your name and your affiliation.
Bradley Burke, Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of Saratoga Springs.
John Scavo, Town of Clifton Park, Planning Director for Clifton Park.
Greg Wixer, Region 1 DOT, Planning and Program Management.
Bob Rice, Region 1 DOT, the Regional Planning and Program Manager.
Mike Franchini with CDTC.
Liz Cormos, Village of Ballston Spa.
Ivan Vamos, Bicycle Coalition.
Todd Finkel from Rensselaer County ARC Transportation Department.
Tawfiq Jahan, New York State Department of Transportation, Public Transportation Bureau, main office.
Audrey
Amy
Burnison.
Hedges.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Audrey Burnison, New York State Department of Transportation, Region 1 Planning.
Amy Hedges, New York State Department of Transportation, PTB Bureau.
Has anyone else introduced themselves?
This is Adam Yagelski, Director of Planning and Zoning with the Town of East Greenbush.
Thank you, Adam. I see a telephone
Welcome.
number 371-6651. Could you identify yourself, please?
Hi, this is Jen Vigiani with the Town of Clifton Park Planning Department.
Okay, Jen, thanks.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. We really look forward to hearing what you have to say about the transportation planning process. And so I'm going to start off with the first question. From your perspective, how well do you understand CDTC's transportation planning process? So anyone can respond if they'd like. This is kind of like a little bit of free for all. So, don't be shy. That's why we're here.
Maria, I'll start. John Scavo with Clifton Park. I would just say CDTC has been a great advocate for communities throughout the capital region in terms of clearly defining their mission for transportation throughout the region and supporting local communities to achieve not only regional goals, but local community goals. And they're there as a support entity as the regional transportation issues are addressed. Many of us are dealing with the same issues on the local level. So they provide a direct line of communication, networking, and basically a toolbox and framework, if you will, for the policymakers at the local level to have resources available to them when making transportation decisions and considerations.
Thank you.
Maria, this is Bob Rice from DOT. I always view it as while the federal highway funds are allocated and then ultimately administered by DOT, that the MPO is always a good forum to ensure that the program is a comprehensive mix of both community planning and intermodal elements to it. It's not just directed by DOT priorities, that there are also sort of a more comprehensive community organized aspect to the program as a whole.
Thanks, Bob. It's good to see you.
Since intermodal mentioned from the perspective of bicycling and pedestrian and multimodal transportation, they've very much supported a up-to-date program of dealing with these issues.
I'm sorry, dealing with what?
Ivan, could you repeat yourself? It was a little blurry at the end.
I think you're on mute right now, Ivan.
Ivan, you're on mute.
I've got to get my facts on. They've been a great supporter of safety and multimodal systems and complete streets design, which we greatly appreciate. Made a difference.
Thank you, Ivan.
I'd like to add something. It's Jen Bigiani. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yep. Just kind of building on Bob Rice's comments, with the Complete Streets Committee particularly, I feel like the CDTC staff they are highly professional and extremely knowledgeable, willing to help local municipalities in any way, and they're truly good listeners to all sides of the issues, really working hard to bridge viewpoints and to foster understanding and common ground across different perspectives, such as the local government perspectives with state DOT and federal highway policies and protocols. So just something particularly the Complete Streets Committee has been working very well. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Does anybody else have anything to add? If not, we're going to move on to question number 2. Also, just a quick, really quickly, there is a chat box, and Jen Saponis is monitoring it. She says, you know, you can also type comments into the chat pod if you'd like as well. So. Okay, so we're going to move on to question number 2. From your perspective, how well is CDTC's transportation planning process working to effectively improve transportation in the region? I'm going to repeat that one more time. From your perspective, how well is CDTC transportation planning process working to effectively improve transportation in the region?
You know, I guess, Maria, I mean, I'll jump right into it. To me, I think the biggest component is that the representation around the table and the conversations that go on. And then, as previously mentioned, the capabilities of the staff and the resources to provide the technical support. And, I find it to be a very candid, open sort of group, a lot of lessons learned, who tried a project, what went well, what didn't. Very much the community support comes together around the table, particularly at the planning committee. I think a lot of very candid discussions at the planning committee.
Maria, John Scavo, I would just like to add CDTC, with my experience over the last 20 years when it comes to analysis, it's not just, and we often see this at the local government level, a quantitative analysis of how many linear feet per mile can I get per dollar, but we also look at qualitative analysis, and CDTC encourages innovation in terms of sustainability and long-term planning, and it allows us to bring back information to our local elected officials to speak to the quality of design and improvements and the long-term payback in terms of providing for a sustainable community.
Maria, there is a comment in the chat box. Do you want me to read it?
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Charles Welge from the Albany County Department of Health said CDTC has been effective in leveraging multi-organizational assets and transparent communications with various constituencies.
Thanks, Charles.
Maria, it's Brad Burge. I know that I had an input yesterday, opportunity to provide some discussion, so I'm kind of hanging in the back, letting others speak. But I do want to reemphasize the collaborative approach, and I think Bob introduced it here. The large table around all of the representatives sit is a phenomenal example of how people work well together. And when you bring the proper people together and treat those individuals with respect and provide good data, you can get to the best slate of projects. You know, when the planning committee spends a great deal of time and invests great resources into developing the slate of activities, the slate of projects to be funded, it's really a genuinely interesting process where it's not simply done based upon raw data, but rather, as John Scavo had mentioned, that there's a qualitative approach to that. And even when that begins to create a ranking system of potential projects, there's still a free-form dialogue in which people can suggest that there are extenuating circumstances, or the timing is correct, or it is a ripe opportunity to take advantage to advance whatever project it may be. So I think that's really key. It's not cut and dry statistics, but rather there is an emphasis on how are people going to be served, what's the best and most efficient use of the funds at this time, and taking into consideration that qualitative aspect. And I think that's very, very successful.
Thanks, Brad.
If I might add, the one thing that I found is that the emphasis is not just on, automobile and freight transportation, but there's a real balance, with an increased emphasis on the pedestrian and transit and bicycle. And I don't know how this works in other parts of the country, if it's the same, but I very much enjoy the emphasis placed on these other modes of transportation, because traditionally they, essentially been neglected. And you can see that in our communities where, there is no safe bicycle path for bicyclists. The sidewalks are falling apart. And the attention has not been given yet. The main state road going through, gets improved every few years. So I very much enjoy the more balanced emphasis between multimodal transportation, and even the fact that pedestrians are considered part of multimodal transportation.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, I think the heart of the question really, for this question is, as stakeholders and non-public agencies, or, the public or whoever, does this process lends to feeling that you have ownership over the transportation, the transportation in your region?
It's Jen Vigiani. If I could just, it's a small practical matter, but the website presence, the information that's available on the website, I think is really critical. And hopefully, I guess I can't speak to if all, the whole community is reaching, towards CDTC's website, but the fact that that data is available on the website about every TIP project, people can see the status and understand the decision-making process, I think is at least a very critical piece that CDTC is doing well. And obviously it's a great framework to keep building on, but it's at least a way that people from the public who have no idea how it all works, if they know to go to CDTC's website, they can at least start to get some insight about the projects being funded in the way that is organized. So thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to the next question. Michelle, you want to take that?
Of course, thank you. Are there opportunities for you to provide input on transportation issues and plans, such as the long-range transportation plan and other studies and issues? Again, are there opportunities for you to provide input on transportation issues and plans, such as the long-range transportation plan and other studies and issues?
I'll start. John Scavo, Clifton Park. I think that there is adequate opportunity, and CDTC makes every effort to engage communities that we regularly don't hear from. I regularly get direct mailings, and in addition to the direct mailings, I get mailings to the chief elected official alerting me to opportunities. So I know the elected officials are also getting the same information that we're getting. The opportunities are there. They're always available to take your phone calls, and they're always available to meet with you in person. So I would say that the opportunity is there. It's just having the ability of local community leaders to embrace what's available to them.
Thank you, John.
From the DOT perspective, I mean, Mike and his staff and myself and the DOT staff, there is a really strong relationship. They're always available for a discussion or a meeting on any topic without hesitation. And we may not always agree on every aspect of a circumstance, but the working relationship I find to be very open and responsive.
Maria, there's a comment from Charles Welge again, if you want me to read it. CDTC provides multiple means of providing input, including committees, workshops, surveys, and webinar series.
This is Adam Yagelski from East Greenbush. I also want to add that we've been fortunate to be able to host meetings in the town of East Greenbush for, I think it was the Trails Plan a couple of years ago now, maybe. So CDTC also works to, actually have a presence and be in, communities, around the region. So that's, that might be changing a little bit in these times, but that's been an important and valuable part of the process in the past.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Jen Vigiani. CDTC did a great job specifically with the local road safety action plan, again, of going out into the community. That's one example. And the Capital District Trails plan that Adam just mentioned. I just want to highlight the extensive kind of outreach that was done for that. And also the fact that CDTC funds pop-up demonstration projects. I think in communities such as Schenectady and Troy, off the top of my head, maybe probably in other locations as well. I mean, what a great way to engage with the public through a planning process that they may not even realize is a planning process, right? To be thinking about changing policies for bike and ped safety. So in addition to helping with capital car share and bike share programs. So these are very direct ways that the greater public is engaging with CDTC's work. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, thank you all very much. If there are no other additions, I'll add, are there opportunities for people of all ages, abilities, incomes, and races to provide equal access and opportunity, and races to provide input to the transportation process? Again, are there opportunities for people of all ages, abilities, incomes, and races to provide equal input in the transportation planning process?
Well, though I'm with the Bicycle Coalition, as I mentioned before, I also am amongst the 80-year-olds and have to speak for my wife, who's somewhat more limited than I am, about good transportation. And I do this very regularly, as do many of the other people joining us our meetings. We do focus in some urban, central urban areas that like Capital Roots brings in input from that perspective, but perhaps as we see just in the last week's set of issues being brought forth, that can still be addressed in transportation equity issues. But I'm sure we will be talking about that at our next meetings.
Thank you for that, Ivan.
It's Jen Vigiani again. I just want to highlight Jen Saponis' work with the Bike and Ped Advisory Committee, and I know she did some outreach with a Shenendahowa Middle School youth group. These are really amazing, motivated students who were starting with a robotics project that the outcome is that they wanted to continue with bike and ped safety in the community here in Clifton Park. That same group of students, they actually presented at the May Bike and Ped Advisory Committee meeting via a Zoom call, just like this. So just to highlight an example of how CDTC staff take seriously reaching out to youth as well as disabled and senior populations. So thank you.
Thank you again, Jen.
Charles Welge left another comment, if I can read it. It says, please note that CDTC has established a subcommittee specifically to address equity issues and concerns.
Thank you, Charles. All right, anyone else? If not, Maria, do you have a follow-up or would you like to move on?
Yeah, let's move on. So the next question is, what are some things that work well at CDTC?
I have to say the ability to get funds for planning, particularly small communities like ours. We don't have a planner. We don't have the funds to do planning, and the ability to get a grant to do planning is invaluable.
There's another comment in the chat box from Jose Hoganveras from RPI, which I'll read. Says, hi, I've been having connection problems, which explains why I joined late. I'd like to mention that CDTC does a fantastic job in reaching to all stakeholders and particularly fostering innovation. A clear example of the latter is CDTC's stellar involvement in National Cooperative Highway Research Program projects with RPI. The CDTC staff has been very involved in these research efforts, which have resulted in numerous products that benefit CDTC's operations and the country as a whole.
Thank you, Jose. It's good to see you.
I will jump in if there's a pause here. This is Jen Bigiani with Town of Clifton Park. The work that CDTC is doing with its Equity Advisory Committee, I have not been involved to date, but I've been reviewing what they've been working on, and the focus groups on the 2018 in transportation system gaps. I think is tremendous direction for the CDTC and its equity group to be going towards, as well as working on 2018 closely with the City of Albany and their South Pearl Street heavy vehicle traffic pattern study. I really want to commend them for doing that kind of work, and their ongoing work on transportation and poverty report. I think those are, especially this week, this day, this time of our lives. I think it's just such important work. And so I hope that CDTC continues to do that kind of work and that we can all support them in doing that kind of work. And that kind of work will be incorporated further into local, state, and federal project programming. It's a really high priority. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Could you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Jose.
Oh, now, good. Well, in response to the question of what the CDTC is doing well, I mean, it's in relation to my comment. CDTC is very open to new ideas. They have collaboration with universities, Sony Albany, RPI, and many others I'm not aware of. And that is very unique because that provides an opportunity for us to get feedback from CDTC about needs, issues they want to resolve, and also help the entire community in the US. You see, it's a culture of innovation in which basically we could bring ideas to them, and then basically they say, that's a good idea, let's go ahead and do it. And that is not common, by the way. I see many NPOs. I deal with many NPOs in the US, and there is also like a culture of, okay, and give us ideas, and that's it. But in CDTC, basically, we have a highly collaborative partner. You see, that has been, for instance, some concrete examples. Years ago, we had a project with a program called Sharp C20, and then we're going to allocate some funds for CDTC. And instead of getting the funds, what I said, Jose, let's use these funds to collect additional data about freight trip generation. And these additional funds that we had enable us to increase the sample size and to create a freight trip generation models that are now used, countrywide. And this is a tiny example of a case in which, one example of many, in which CDTC participated on a research project that ended up benefiting basically the whole of the US. And that is one example. And I could spend 2 hours talking about the others, but I'm going to keep quiet now.
Thank you, Jose. Appreciate your comments.
Maria, this is Bob again. I certainly like to recognize the linkage studies in particular from the DOT perspective. A lot of times a community knows they have an issue. There's a parking issue, a circulation issue, a traffic issue or something, but these are really these high level sort of planning studies help frame help frame a project, I guess, something that the arms can be put around and that then can go into a preliminary engineering phase. But it takes sort of what is a local issue and actually then becomes, all right, here's X, Y, and Z things that we can do to accomplish that, to mitigate that. So it's a different process. Being only in the Capital District for a couple of years now, I mean, I've find those programs to be extremely helpful to jumpstart, particularly community-based downtown type initiative projects. Very helpful from the department perspective.
Thanks, Bob.
Maria, there's a comment from Audrey from DOT, just agreeing with Bob, and said that she was just about to add CDTC has been effective at providing support to project development through programs like linkage studies and the technical assistance program. The results of those studies have been key to lining up funding with projects that are ready for design.
This is Adam Yagelski again. I wanted to add, I know it's been mentioned a couple of times in response to the other questions. I think the planning committee and that big table is particularly effective, and I wanted to emphasize it in response to what's working here. I think it provides a really valuable forum, not only to address issues and new ideas and that kind of stuff, but also to build consensus and kind of a shared understanding, about how transportation relates to quality of life, and what are some solutions.
Thanks, Adam.
All right. Well, if there are no additional comments there, or you can add on as I ask this question, the flip side, of course, is from your perspective, what areas do you think could be improved?
Hi, Liz Cormos. I mentioned this before yesterday's meeting, but I'd like to see in the linkage program either or, either and, a lowering of the match and or the ability to use in-kind services as part of the match. For a small community, the match is often a hurdle that maybe keeps small communities, rural communities from participating. I've experienced applying for another grant source from DEC for the tree grant, and they allow matching to make up their local work to make up some of the match, and it really allows us to apply for that kind of money, and get a project. So that's my one recommendation.
Thank you,
Thank
Liz.
you, Liz. Anything else that anyone would like to add?
You know, Maria, this is Bob again. You know, a lot of good things have been said here today. I think the only maybe difference in philosophy it would be that, you know, while it's important, the emphasis on the other modes, I think sometimes the perspective of the importance of the highway and bridge network sometimes gets lost. And you know, I've expressed this as part of the New Visions document that, you know, they sort of view the highway and bridge network as the backbone and the, you know, other modes as complementary and overlays, and that element, not just one of the 8 modes there. I mean, the billions of VMT and the importance to the economy of the capital district. You know, and we raise our voice sometimes if I think that message gets lost in all of the other good efforts that are going on.
Well, let me add to Bob's comment, perhaps with additional references. Sometimes the main road systems, as they're built, aren't serving the other users well enough, though they could be built in a better way. For example, not necessarily only in this region, but further in DOT Region 1, there have been times when perfectly usable road shoulders, instead of being repaved, were replaced with gravel, and that made them unusable from perspective of bicyclists, handicapped, and even unpleasant walking. So the use of the major road systems properly built, which are well within DOT's guidelines, help a lot of other users as well.
Thanks, Ivan, and thanks, Bob. Appreciate your comments.
I think I would, this is Adam Yagelski, I would be remiss, my colleagues in DPW, if I didn't mention, and I'm not sure the solution, you know, I know there are multiple ways to do maintenance and paving projects. You know, that's a huge need in East Greenbush, with a several $million backlog of maintenance, you know, on town roads. You know, I know they would want me to mention that, so I figured I'd mention it here.
Our DPW would concur.
Thank you both.
Okay, so if there are no other comments, and thank you very much for that. I appreciate everyone's just their candidness and their straightforwardness. This really helps, you know, in this whole process. Just one final thought is, one final thing is, do you guys have any questions for us on the federal side? We have some time for that, so just gonna open it up if you have any questions for us on the federal side.
I think we're good from the DOT side of the house. So yeah, thank you all.
Okay. I just want to add that if you do have questions or if you want to speak to us, Rochelle and I one-on-one, We are available for the next, I think, 30 days as we're working on this certification report. So feel free to reach out to us. You can either get our information through Mike Franchini, or, my email address is really simple. It's just maria.chau, C-H-A-U, @dot.gov. And you are welcome to email me, and we can either do a face-to-face, virtually, or, or a phone call, or emails. That's fine too. We also have a survey link that if you wanted to provide any more written comments. The question format is basically the same as what you went through during this meeting, but if you wanted to add more to it, you are welcome to. And with that, thank you once again for joining in this meeting, this interview, and we really appreciate everyone's comments. And Rochelle, did you want to add anything to that?
No, just echoing Maria. Thank you all for taking some time on your Friday morning to join and speak with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. It was a good conversation.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you once again, and I hope you guys have a really, really good weekend.
You too.
Enjoy some rest.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Once again, I just want to thank Mike Franchini. He and his staff have been very, very helpful throughout this whole process, so we appreciate him, setting up and hosting this call for us, the Zoom meeting, we look forward to having to close out with him sometime soon. It's about next week, right, Mike?
I think it's next week, yes.
All right, okay. All right, thank you once again.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.